joining the Save the Boys webinar. As a follow-on to the last ALD Connect webinar, we're very excited to discuss how we can all advocate for newborn screening for adrenoleukodystrophy, or ALD, a very rare disease. A special thanks to everyone at ALD Connect, especially Ina Zhang, Brian Chandler, and Kathleen O'Sullivan-Fortin, as well as Elisa Seeger of the Aiden Jack Seeger Foundation, Bluebird Bio, the Patient Experience Project, and Jean Kelly of Brian's Hope for making this webinar possible. Before we get into the good stuff, I have a disclaimer and a few housekeeping reminders. First, this webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing later. Kristen, if you can move to the next slide. The disclaimer that we have is that the information and services provided by ALD Connect are for informational purposes only, so these are not supposed to be substitutes for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment. If you or a family member are ill or suspect that you or a family member are ill, please seek medical attention immediately. The subject matter of this webinar will not provide medical advice. However, during the question and answer, something may come up. ALD Connect does not recommend or endorse any specific physicians, treatments, procedures, or products, even though they may be mentioned on the site. And please note that your participation in the webinar is completely voluntary. And again, the webinar will be recorded and will be available for rebroadcast at a later time. The next slide with the reminders. So please enter your audio pin so that you can participate after the presentation is over. You can use the question box to send questions that come up throughout the presentation. If you send them directly to Ina Zhang, the organizer, we'll be able to do our best to get to all of them in the end. And Kristen Phillips and Jennifer Price from the Patient Experience Project and Elisa Seeger from the Aiden Jack Seeger Foundation will be available to answer your questions. A special note, the only folks who have an unmute or who are unmuted will be the presenters. I will now hand the presentation over to Kristen and Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you everyone so much for your enthusiasm around the summer campaign around Save the Boys. So just in way of background information, why we're here, you know, we all know all too well that newborn screening can mean the difference between life and death in affected boys. We've worked tirelessly for the addition of ALD to the recommended uniform screening panel, and our efforts are finally paying off. On October 27th, the Discretionary Advisory Committee will make a decision whether ALD should be added to the RUSP, and they'll be recommending directly to the Secretary of Health to add ALD to the newborn screening panel. And this initiative over the summer, over the next 6 weeks, is really to let our voices be heard in a collective manner so that we can help to ensure that all our boys have a fighting chance right from the start. So what are we trying to accomplish with this initiative? I think if anybody's ever been in a crowded room with everybody talking all at once about different things at different times, it just sounds noisy. And what we're trying to do with this initiative is to ensure that a unified message is delivered by all ALD advocacy groups and stakeholders. During the written and public comment period, we want to make sure that the Discretionary Advisory Committee hears us and hears us loud and clear by talking in a collective voice with a consistent message. And we also want to create a groundswell of public support for the addition of ALD to the RUSP. And so we're going to be increasing awareness of the need for ALD newborn screening through social media, and we're asking for your help in spreading the word through social media about the need for ALD newborn screening. And we also are going to be providing everybody who's attended this call with materials that will help you reach out to your local media and other key constituents that you may have if you have an email list or a database, that you can reach out to folks and let them know that, that this decision is pending and how important it is that they let their support for ALD newborn screening be heard. So the resources that we'll be providing to help you get this done, we were so fortunate to work with Elisa and Jean and Suzanne Flynn on a PSA video. And we'll be launching that video on Facebook on Monday the 13th, and we'll also be providing that video to you to use in your outreach to local media and your constituents. It's a very powerful story about the need for newborn screening and also the success that has been seen in New York State, the only state with mandated newborn screening. We'll also be providing, as I mentioned, an advocacy press kit where we'll go into detail throughout this webinar about how to use these materials, but a media pitch letter, the key messages, again, to make sure that we're all singing from the same song card, an ALD backgrounder that will provide the media with all the information that they need to know in order to put together a story about ALD newborn screening, as well as an email template that you can customize with your own organization's logo and sign on your own behalf. And there's also areas where you can customize that content based on your own story and your own connection to ALD. And finally, the social media content plan. We will be posting multiple times on Twitter and Facebook every day throughout the next 6 weeks with different facts about ALD and video clips from the PSA video shoot. Just really, and that's all about driving people to the Save the Boys petition that's on change.org with a goal of getting 100,000 signatures by August 27th. So on Monday, we'll be distributing to everybody on this call a how-to guide that's really going to provide you with much more detail than these slides will, so that you'll really have a step-by-step guide to how to use all the materials that we're providing today. So the first step is how you can help with respect to the public comments. The Discretionary Advisory Committee is going to be reviewing clinical and economic evidence on the value of ALD newborn screening. There's actually an entire group right now reviewing all of the evidence in support of newborn screening, and they will be presenting to the committee. The committee will also consider oral and written comments from the public in support of newborn screening, and this is really where the folks on this call can step in and lend their support. And the goal, again, is about that cohesive and persuasive message about ALD newborn screening. So the public comment period is not yet open. When you get the how-to guide, there will be a link in that guide to the .gov website where you can register to participate in the public comments. And our recommendation is really to just keep checking back, probably on a weekly basis, to see if they've opened up public comments yet. We'll also send a notification out through Facebook and Twitter as soon as that is open for public comments. But in the meantime, I think it's important to kind of build your story so that if, in some cases they don't open up that registration until a week before the meeting, so you're not scrambling to write it if you want to put together your story. So in terms of submitting public comments and what I mean by telling your story is it's really important that the members of the committee appreciate the devastating impact that ALD has had on your family or your loved ones. Your experiences are so emotionally compelling, and they'll motivate the committee members to want to help. And although except the fact is we have to reinforce with the facts, because although those personal stories are extremely powerful, unfortunately our government does not make decisions based on the power of someone's story on an emotional level. So we want to also provide sufficient evidence to influence the committee's decision, and to really reinforce that evidence that they're going to be hearing from the evidence review group. So we'll also provide you in your how-to guide the types of facts that we want you to be able to reinforce in the conclusion to your story. And finally, I think it's really important to encourage action and to directly ask the committee to recommend that ALD is added to the newborn screening panel. In terms of social media, this is really where we can use your help, because I think that together we're so much louder and more impactful in the real world and online by actively, Facebook, just like Google, has all of these algorithms for why things show up in the top of your news feed. Facebook's the same way. So the more that we're commenting and liking and sharing the posts that will be coming out about ALD newborn screening, the more those posts will show up in your friends' feeds. And it's really important that we do that, because we want to expand the reach of our message beyond just this group and our connections, so that it multiplies and becomes viral throughout social media. So, and the goal with the social media campaign is really to motivate the public beyond those of us who are directly connected to ALD newborn screening. We want to motivate everyone to sign the Save the Boys petition. The goal is 100,000 signatures, so that when Elisa goes and testifies in front of the committee on August 27th, she can say, I have 100,000 signatures from the general public wanting ALD added to the RUSP. So here's how it's going to work. Every day, ALD Connect will be leading the charge on social media by posting fresh, informative content in the morning. So whenever you're able to get onto Facebook, it's important that you like, comment, share the post with your network. If you're on Twitter, you can also favorite and retweet the posts that are coming out through the ALD Connect Twitter feed. And video, we'll have video clips in the content plan that we're presenting, but if anybody is compelled to really consider uploading your own video, to really personalize it, and to explain to the people that are friends with you on Facebook or follow you on Twitter why the Save the Boys campaign is so meaningful to your organization or your family. And the key with all of this is encouraging friends, families, colleagues, strangers to sign that petition and try to get us to 100,000 signatures. I think there's 101 people on this call, so if everybody gets 1,000 signatures, which sounds really challenging until you look at how many Facebook friends you have and think, well, that's, I can probably do it. So I think we can, and that's really the goal. We want everybody to really get engaged, to share this, so that it grows legs beyond our, this network here on the webinar today. So other tips and tricks for social media, as I mentioned, personalizing it. Whether that's creating a video or uploading a photo of your own, adding your own message to explain, when you share one of our posts, why this is so meaningful to you. It's important to, again, ask people, make sure people understand what we want them to do, and we want them to go to change.org and sign the Save the Boys petition. And actually, when people sign the petition, they can themselves choose to promote that petition or or distribute a link to that petition on their Facebook page. We can also do a direct effort for those of you who are on Twitter using @mentions to allow to directly message particular followers about the Save the Boys summer campaign. And of course, be diligent. 6 weeks is a long time to stick with anything. So set an alarm on your phone or add a daily reminder to your calendars to really help spread the word through social media. We have 6 weeks to accomplish this goal, and I really think we can do it, but I think it will require us all making that daily effort to spread the word. And I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer to walk you through how to use all of the materials in the media outreach.
Thank you, Kristen, and good morning, everybody. If we want to move to the next slide, so kind of to build on what Kristen just talked about in terms of social media, there's also the more traditional media avenue that can help to raise awareness and drive action in the local community. So reporters are constantly looking for stories that will be of interest to their audiences. The key to making a story relevant is to have a strong news hook, so something that is timely, a local tie and spokesperson, so that's all of you, and supporting material that will really help the reporter to build out a story with credible information. The good news is we have a great story to tell, and all of these components have been prepared for you to use, as Kristen mentioned, and will be in your toolkit. If we go to the next slide, you'll see what those materials are. So we have a media pitch letter and backgrounder, key messages, some tips and tricks for identifying local media, then making the pitch, and also managing any requests that you get as part of the process. So we'll go into detail about all of these components in the subsequent slides. So in terms of the pitch letter, it's really important that you take a moment to familiarize yourself with this document. It is templated and structured for you to be able to tell the reporter all the important things listed here. So starting out with that news hook that we talked about. So what's timely? Given the summer time frame, one of the news hooks that we're using is the uptick or the rise in birth rates during the August and September time frame. As well as obviously the pending committee decision in August. So that's kind of the way that reporters will look at how can I make this relevant to the largest audience possible. And then that local tie that we mentioned is you and who you are, where you live, and why this particular cause matters to you. And then there is a backgrounder that will be accompanying the pitch letter when you are engaging with media. And this document really is an easy-to-reference fact sheet for reporters. They're very busy people, so anything that we can give them where they can lift facts and not have to do the research on their own is always greatly appreciated. And then the pitch letter also contains the call to action, which we've touched on in all of the components, which is really to have them inform the community about how they can support this initiative and where they can go, to drive more signatures. And then the other thing that's usually important to media is the opportunity to interview someone who is close to the story. So that is likely you as the community member, and sometimes they also look for subject experts. So in this case, it would be a member from ALD Connect. Can we move to the next slide?
Yeah,
so key messages. This slide talks about the key messages. So it is really important that you familiarize yourself with these kind of hard-hitting messages. In media, we call this an elevator speech. So this is something that you would tell someone if you had very little time to explain an initiative and why it's important to you. These are the key messages that we would encourage you to reference in the event that you do a media interview. And in addition, if you are engaging with any reporters over the phone, this is a nice reference sheet to be able to explain ALD, the initiative, and why it's important. I won't go through them line by line, but this is definitely something that will be part of your toolkit, and we encourage you to take a read and try and get as familiar and comfortable with the language. We can go to the next slide. So identifying media targets. So you know your community best, and as you prepare to do some of this media outreach, you need to do a little bit of homework first. So what we would ask you to do in terms of starting is to make a list of the local media outlets, everything from newspapers to radio stations and television stations. I always find it helpful to ask friends and family where they get their local news. There's oftentimes a lot of community newspapers, those flyers that you get at the grocery store or the local coffee shop. So while there may not be publications or stations that you listen to regularly, it's important that we kind of cast a wide net here. So that's the first step. And then, of course, Google or a search engine is also a great way to try and find maybe stations or publications in your community that you may not be familiar with. And then you'll also use the search engine to try and find the reporters that you need to reach out to. So we're probably looking here for community news or health-related reporters. Depending on the size of the publication or the outlet, there may not be someone who has that specific role. So if you don't find reporters for these specific beats, as we call them in media, in those cases it's perfectly okay to get the general phone number for the organization or email and call or request the email and name of the reporter who you should be sending community-related type news or health information to. And one important thing to remember is it's okay if you email the wrong person. Oftentimes they will internally send it to the appropriate person. They'll forward your email or let you know who you should be talking to and give you that phone number. So in terms of making the pitch, so once you see the pitch letter, this will make a little bit more sense, but you'll really want to personalize it for the reporter. So we have a bracket in there. We want to make sure that you're using their first name. They don't want to feel like they're being sent something that is a kind of mass communication. They want to know that some thought went into the pitch. So that's a very important piece. The next is to paste the text from that Word document into the body of the email and make sure that all the hyperlinks in there transfer. And then at the bottom, there is a place for your contact information. So it's best to give them, definitely an email and the best phone number to reach you. And here it's also okay to include, the better times, for you, et cetera. Sending emails early in the morning when possible is the best way to get reporters' attention. They tend to do a lot of their story writing or interviews out in the field in the afternoon. So the morning is usually when they sit with their cup of coffee and go through their email. If you do get an out-of-office message, forward to the email of the contact who is listed. And if you have not heard back from the reporter after sending an email in about 2 to 3 days, it's perfectly fine to send a follow-up note. And if you're comfortable reaching out to them by phone, that is also another avenue that you can use. Can we go to the next slide? So managing requests. So this is the exciting part. So you've reached out to the media and they've decided that they're interested in pursuing your story. So a reporter requests an interview with you. So now what? So you'll want to set up a call or an in-person interview, depending on the publication. A lot of times newspapers will want to do an interview over the phone. Radio stations can go kind of either way in terms of a phone call or an in-studio where it's either pre-recorded or live. These are things that they'll let you know as part of the interview process. It's always okay to request questions that they're going to ask you in advance so that you can prepare properly. And if this is the case and you do receive questions and there's anything on there that you are not comfortable answering, we do have in the kit how to reach out to us so that we can assist you in that process. During the interview, it's really important that you tell your story. That is why they're interviewing you. They want to hear from you and your experience. Obviously, we want to reinforce with facts, and some of those facts are built into that elevator speech that we talked about. And then the big thing that we want to make sure happens during any interview is obviously that you're pointing people to where we can take action and where they can sign the survey. Your toolkit will actually have a scenario portion for things that may happen during an interview and then how to address that. We won't go into all those in detail, but one of the ones we definitely want to call out is that it's perfectly okay to not answer a question that you do not know. You're really there to talk about your personal experience and your role in the call to action, particularly if there's anything that's related to a medical question or something that would be better answered by an expert. Always defer medical questions to a healthcare professional. And when in doubt, this is the email that I was talking about, you'll reach out to Kristen. And the next slide. So just in summary, we recognize that you're likely not PR professionals, but we just wanted to impart that don't be disappointed if a reporter chooses to pass on a story. Sometimes there's just really limited resources in an organization, and they don't have time to cover it, or there just aren't adequate, people to be able to pursue the story. In the event that you do hear from a reporter that they want to cover it, or you are doing a media interview, please do let us know. We want to be sure that we are monitoring for the coverage so we can, get those results accordingly. And, most importantly, regardless of the results, your efforts are really making meaningful strides for the cause. And really, we thank you for all you're doing. And the next slide, and I'll turn this back over to Kristen for this.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jennifer. So the last point here is about this email template that will also be included in the toolkit. We have pre-drafted an email for you, but there's opportunities for that email to be personalized, whether it's dropping it into your own organization's template or customizing some of the language around why the Save the Boys campaign is so meaningful to you. The email can then be distributed to friends, family, colleagues, community groups, encouraging them to sign and share the Save the Boys petition. And really, the goal here with this email is just reaching out in yet another channel to activate your network to generate support for the Save the Boys petition. And with that, we will, I think that the toolkit that you'll be receiving on Monday will certainly I think provide much greater detail about how to use the materials and how to participate in the campaign. This was a very high-level overview and introduction, but we're certainly happy to take any questions that you may have at this time.
As a reminder, if you have a question, please direct it within the questions or chat to Ina Sang. And the first question that we have is, how will the toolkit be delivered?
We plan to send the toolkit to the email that was used to register for the webinar. So it's a Word document, and we will be distributing that to the email that attendees have used to register.
Are there any other questions? If you have any further questions, the materials that are sent to the email address you used to register for this webinar will have contact information for you to reach out, ask any questions either about this specific campaign or about any details around newborn screening or ALD. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your time. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, will be available for viewing later, and we look forward to working with you in the future on this. When you close out, there will be a survey, and we would love if you would fill out the survey for us. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you.